And defending against Spain when you're in that kind of like blender roller coaster, mentally should I go? Physically, I can't go. You're not thinking as clearly. Now you're out of breath. Now you're tired. Now you're questioning something. Spain is just, their style is just so hard to defend.
It's Rog, and we have just lived history. 22 women played the game of their lives, and the World Cup has a first-time winner. Spain have just become the first ever Women's World Cup winners to have clean swept the under-17, the under-20 World Cups, and now, the real big kahuna, an incredible, omnipotent stranglehold on the women's game. Completed, you've got to remember, in just their third World Cup appearance proper ever. Remarkable achievement by a squad of just elite human beings who, we have to remember, were at war with their own federation, rebelling against their own coach along the way. Some journey. And we should know, because we have lived the entire odyssey with an incredibly special human being, a World Cup winning human being. It's magical to welcome back after watching Spain 1, England 0. My partner in pod, handsome mass Hugh Jackman. It's the great Sam Mewis.
Hi, Rog. What a game we just got to watch. The World Cup final. It's over.
It is over. Sam, you say that with such excitement. There were times during this World Cup when Sam and I were getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, just groggy, shattered, cereal deprived, where we didn't think we'd make this. I know the players think they've suffered. I mean, you should try twitching this thing. But watching what we've just watched, partly I'm like, it should have been us. But partly, did it bring back memories watching this for you of your lifetime wonder achievement, 2019 World Cup final, Sam Mewis?
Yeah, it totally did. I mean, just the sheer joy, relief, like the overwhelming emotion of winning a World Cup. It was actually like fun for me to see that, to see other players get to experience that. I think it's something so few people really ever get to feel, even players who have been at the top of their game for a long time. It's such a small percentage of players who get to win the World Cup. And so seeing the Spanish players who've been through a lot get to have that kind of just overwhelming happiness and joy and to share that with each other. It was really cool to see, and I was excited to watch.
God, and my heart broke whenever they showed fans in the stadium to see so many American fans at the final, travelling all that way, just assuming, of course, the US women's national team are going to be playing. The bad news, the terrible news, traumatic news, and we'll touch upon this in this AMP, the US were not there, but at least everyone who was there got to see a game of just immense history and lore. I think the women's game at its best. What an incredible footballing final. But first, a toast. I want to open with a third first Bud Light of the day to this tournament that we've all just witnessed, shared, journeyed upon. The quality of play on the field. Just so many teams announcing themselves thrillingly to the world. The ticket sales, 1.9 million human beings in person. But the real story here, the explosive growth, the viewing figures around the world. In Australia, 11.5 million people, about 46% of the population, watch the Matildas play England. Watch the Matildas just revel in their semi-final, the country's most watched television programme of any kind since ratings were tracked. The 7.3 million people who viewed that game on BBC One in England comprised the biggest UK audience of the World Cup so far. All of this despite difficult viewing times in America and Europe. Here, the ratings records for non-US women's games have been broken. The crowds, most tickets sold ever. The 80,000 watching Australia, immense. That growth, commercial possibility, project it forward and just see this Women's World Cup will be remembered a little bit like the Men's World Cup 1982 as the benchmark, which led to a dizzying change in everything that is possible. But Sam, we've seen history. You've lived this. Just take us back 4 years and just remind us, how did you feel ahead of your World Cup final when you found out you were starting against Serena Wegman, then with the Netherlands? Tell us the emotions, what you feel. Do you sleep well, or do you lean into the adrenaline and just let it be a different feeling game?
Well, I think by that time in the tournament, we just had so much adrenaline. I really felt so confident in us. I felt so prepared. I felt like everything had gone our way, and like, why would that change now? So going into the final, I was like, yeah, it's just like one more game that we have to win, but we've been doing it. I felt so good about it. And I don't like have that. I don't really have that many clear memories like building up to the game, but I remember a lot during the game. And I remember feeling when Pino scored her PK, just the like, I had my fists were just clenched, like all of my energy and might was just all pent up in this thing that was about to happen. And I remember when Rose scored, just my absolute disbelief. I remember the final moments of the game and just starting to realize that we were going to win. And it was a game like unlike any other, just with everybody watching, the heightened meaning of the game, the way I felt about my teammates and all that we had done to get to that moment. I felt so confident and so ready. And winning it was just like the most special thing ever.
The opposite of how you felt today when you had to just twitch with dull old Rog. And Sam, I was just in England on Thursday and I was just blown away by how abuzz the nation was for women's football there right now. England in a World Cup final, something that every school kid has dreamt of since 1966. It was happening today for real. It was beautiful that it was delivered not by the men, but by the women. Particularly because the English Football Association instituted a ban from 1921 to 1970, disallowing women's football on the stadia, the fields used by its member clubs. The women gave the men a huge start. The men couldn't accomplish the feat. And I was just so moved to see them take the field, knowing that if they could win today, it will transform the status of the sport, the status of women societally. But this was a fascinating clash. We said this at kickoff. One team that are European champions, England, that are playing another who are already U17, U20 world champions looking to sweep. The first team led through a storm of external problems, injuries, poor form, just finding a way by a magnificent coach, Serena Wegman, the Dutch woman, once of North Carolina, Tar Heels, now leading England, playing Spain, a team who've been bedeviled by internal problems involving their coach, Vilda, who had essentially got to the final by muscle memory, learnt by the players, mostly at Barcelona, their investment in the women's game, and Real Madrid. They've been clearly icing their coach, clearly holding their federation at arm's length. They were doing battle with their federation every step of the way. An incredible contrast, Sam.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, I think we were also excited for England, knowing that they had this great relationship with their coach, and England themselves have had to advocate for themselves with their federation. I mean, this story is not unusual for this World Cup, but I feel at least like England's team was unified and on board with their coach and kind of taking these steps forward for the whole country to support them as a unit. And so I think our excitement for them was there. They've really grown into this tournament and it's been so exciting to watch. But Spain, despite all this turmoil, has played beautifully. They've had their own battles this tournament. I mean, they lost 4-0 to Japan in their group stage. They've just played a style that I think no one can deny is incredibly fun to watch, incredibly impressive. I mean, their technical ability, the way they can all read the game, the way they can break down opponents. So difficult to defend Spain, and seeing them win today is well-deserved to the players. They've done an incredible job, and I can't say how difficult it must have been for them to be dealing with this off the field and to perform like this on the field. It's such a testament to their skill.
I mean, you were living a version of this in 2019 where the US were winning while battling for equality against their federation. It is remarkable. Bon Mati said ahead of this game, we're in the final because we are professional footballers who know what we do, what we work for, and what our objectives are. Now, they did admit that they were feeling turmoil internally. Miguel Delaney wrote before the game, they want to do the best for themselves, the players, but they know every success makes the federation, makes the manager look good. And there's also an element to this story which is fascinating about where football is. Women's football in this second, England, Spain, both journeys testimony to the two best footballing cultures in women's football right now. Both teams play football in a style that is a refraction of the men's cultures that they have. The Barcelona tiki-taka, the passing, the moving, just the vision, the space. The English football, a lot of these players play on massive teams. You played on Manchester City, Sam, so you know where the men's team, the coaching, the vision, the level of excellence permeates through to the women's culture. And it has to be said, from an American perspective, we currently do not have a real defined men's culture here for the women to lean on or borrow. And it is complex and it is fascinating, Sam.
It is. It's so fascinating. I think just from my experience at Man City, and I mentioned this on the Twitch, I just think the culture of the game, just like you said, it permeates through everything. Everyone's talking about, well, what happened at the weekend? What happened in the women's game? What happened in the men's game? What happened on the international break? The conversation is just always around football. And I think that just lends itself to being such a great place to play, both England and I'm sure Spain, but such a great place to be a fan as well. I mean, when you have players and fans and staff and everybody is just kind of always talking and always paying attention and having an opinion on it, I think it just lends itself to this really fun environment and this really invested culture of the game that makes everybody feel connected and in on it.
And also, this is a deep side note worth unpacking another time. But going into this game, I did think a lot, seeing the dominance of Barcelona, its influence on the Spanish team, and modern Premier League football teams' cultures on the women's team. I did think both nations owe a debt to Pep Guardiola, who has evolved football in every culture he's coached in. And I thought, my God, we need him here in the United States. My Lord, we need him here. That needs to be said. But going into this game, the big storyline was, would England play Lauren James, the 21-year-old Chelsea starlet who revealed herself first to be England's star boy in this tournament before turning heel, getting a 2-match ban for a stamp against Nigeria. Ella Toone had seized the moment in her absence, scored against Australia in an improved performance. Vegman had a tough coaching decision on her hands, a World Cup on the line, really a fraught decision, balancing talent and the collective tactics and the fragile reality of chemistry. And she elected to go unchanged, to have Lauren James return on the bench. You know, do you agree? Is it a matter of not broke, we've won games, don't change anything?
Well, early on in the game, I said I liked the decision, and I think it's a difficult call, one that I'm sure they had to think about and discuss as a staff a lot, because you want to show your 11 that have been playing and have gotten you here that you trust them, that this is not a backup plan. Like, this 11 is doing a great job. They have chemistry. They're winning games. And changing too much is sometimes a question of confidence. I think that Serena Wigman has the team and could have done anything that she chose. Looking back, I mean, I like that Lauren James came in early. She came in at halftime. I think it was tough to get into a rhythm. She hasn't played in 2 games. It's such a big moment. She's a young player. So it's a really difficult question. Obviously, looking back now, could we have, if we had seen it play out differently and Lauren James had started, would the result be different? I don't know. So we're not clear that it was the right decision, but it was a really difficult call. And I liked at the beginning that the coach went with her squad, went with the group that got her here and showed confidence in that.
God, well, I mean, that opening, we'll talk about it in a minute. Spain having one change, dropping Ballon d'Or winner Alexia for young 19-year-old, big goal scoring sensation Salma Pariello. He scored massive goals in the quarterfinal and the semi. Do need to touch upon this before we get to the game itself. Who are you rooting for, Sam Mewis?
I found myself rooting for England. I think in part because I have a lot of friends on England from my time at Man City. And I also think in part because I found it difficult to reconcile the turmoil in the Spanish Federation and the mistreatment of the players. I was aware that the players were fighting for themselves. And of course, I root for them as players. I just find it so difficult to reconcile that and to see that their success may encourage the Federation to not make many changes. My hope is that Spain will use this as leverage to gain whatever it is that they need to gain to get the right people in place in their federation, and that this will give power to the players. But it was still just really difficult to look at it from that perspective. So I found myself rooting for England a few times on the Twitch. I was saying we as if I was English, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening?
I mean, did the Boston Tea Party never happen? Handsome masses, Sam Mewis. But I felt the English narrative of women football is going from the periphery and scorn. Talked a lot about this over the past couple of weeks, being derided in the 1980s when I grew up in our macho, misogynistic English culture, to national darlings and true pathfinders for all women, not just in football, but in society. At the same time as Manchester United are somehow agonising over what to do with Mason Greenwood, the women, powerful women, just seem so dominant. But I've got to say, I felt the Spanish team's uber motivation of driving their sense of injustice down the federation's throats by winning and creating the ultimate leverage as the US women's national team had done in 2019. But I did see England as a true team of destiny who've played for this moment, not just game to game in this tournament, but over the last 10 years. So clinical, so professional, so focused under Coach Vegman. I thought that would give them the edge. As well as the fact that they've been at a big final before. We talked a lot about that, about how being in finals allows you to manage them better. But the game was thrillingly poised from kickoff. Great tweet from Molly Goodfellow. Just walked past a woman explaining the Women's World Cup to her boyfriend. We've done it, ladies. Also this, Spanish coach Jorge Vilda's name announced in the stadium to widespread boos while the name of every Spanish player was cheered, and that set the tone. And the Spanish players matched it. It was a fairly frantic first opening 15 minutes. Spain essentially attempting to annex the ball. Bonmati setting an incredibly high tempo, looking for that final pass. England content to sit, repel, knowing that they would be able to seize moments on the break. Lauren Hemp getting the first, smashing the bar in the 16th minute, and within 60 seconds, Spain charged down the field. Still don't know how they didn't score this. They romped down the left, ball in for Pariello, missed it. But Redondo connected, hitting it right at goalkeeper Mary Earps. But you love that roar of relief and anger and joy after she saved it, audible thousands of miles away. My mate John Green tweeted, "Did nobody tell these players World Cup finals are supposed to be nervous, cagey, unbeautiful affairs?" This was mesmerising from the off, Sam.
Yeah, and the energy, like what Mary Earps, how she responded to saves, even how she responded to the goal. I mean, that body language, the energy that she brought, she's trying to amp her team up. She's showing that they've got it, even when something is going against them. I love to see that. I felt like the energy today was really there. It was incredible. It was so heightened. And so at times, so back and forth. Like you said, England had an early crossbar. I think the first half was more evenly matched, like more chances on both ends. But it was just such an exciting, chance-filled game. It was great.
You and I talked the first time we met to plan this World Cup together. We talked about that Spanish game the US played in 2019, which has somewhat been airbrushed out of history. But my God, I watched that. I remember watching it at the airport, traveling somewhere. We were doing a live show that night. I watched that kaleidoscopic football. The US just survived Megan Rapinoe penalties. But you said, God, that game, we were making panic decisions in that midfield. They were just passing the ball around us. How does it feel to be trying to combat that pass, move, where it's not just physically exhausting running after essentially ghosts, but it's mentally exhausting. You've got to retain total concentration, total focus as they're trying to force that mistake, exhaust you. It's the mental exhaustion, right, that makes you buckle.
Yeah, and I think it's that in two parts. Like one, you've prepared to defend against like a certain formation. So you're prepared as a midfielder to run out and pressure the outside back in a certain situation or the midfielder in a certain situation. And when Spain passes and moves the ball and moves their positioning so much, your plan of when and where to pressure them is thrown out the window. Their movement becomes so fluid and the ball is moving so fast that not only, and this is my second point, are you physically having to make these 10-yard sprints out to pressure and back, 10-yard sprint out to pressure and back, you physically get exhausted, but mentally you're questioning, like, is our pressure plan even working? Where's my support? Should I go here? And defending against Spain when you're in that kind of like blender roller coaster, mentally should I go? Physically I can't go. It's so exhausting. And you do, when you win the ball back, it's so important to be calm and keep it because you can't put yourself back in that situation. But mentally you're going like you're not thinking as clearly. Now you're out of breath. Now you're tired. Now you're questioning something. Spain is just, their style is just so hard to defend.
Courtney Stith on Twitter. England fans trying to G up their team by singing, "You can shove this sangria up your arse. This is proper football." But then it happened, wide open. We actually had Tim Remont at the moment, and he kept saying the left side of the field is just open for Spain, just wide open. The 29th minute, Lucy Bronze charge upfield, leaving a huge void behind her when she lost the ball. Teresa Abelaria hit a glorious pass back into that vacated space. Caldente brought it down, laid into path of the onrushing Olga. Carmona, the 23-year-old left back from Real Madrid, who rifled a beautiful first-time left-footed strike across Mary Ups into that bottom corner. Sam, it's exactly where you meant to put it, right?
Yeah, it was such a great finish. And I felt immediately like the build up to the goal was this really clear transition moment for Spain. Lucy Bronze had dribbled kind of inside and didn't quite get her pass off, lost the ball. And for Olga to recognize that, the ball then gets shot out to that left side. Olga is making that overlapping run, taking advantage of an overload opportunity because Lucy is not in her position. Spain executed that quickly. They executed it with tactical awareness. And then the finish, technically, inches either way would have been saved or hit the post or gone wide. The finish was perfect. Tim noted Olga's adjustment in her run to get her body shape right to finish that. It was such a clinical play. It's something I feel like you would talk about when I talk about moments of transition with the US team throughout the tournament. I was saying I want England to recognize these moments of transition and to just go. Sometimes I feel like they played it around too much. In Spain, recognized the moment. Tactically, they saw the opening. They took advantage. They technically finished their chance. It was such a beautiful goal. It was so incredible.
It was immense. Tim Ream muttered in that moment, can you imagine how good this team would be if they had a proper coach, which is true and frightening. At Gary Lineker tweeted, England trail at half-time. Surely the first goal ever scored in a World Cup final by someone whose name is an anagram of goal. God bless Olga, 23-year-old from Seville. Her name will forever be part of lore. Like for English people, Jeff Hurst is remembered. It was exquisite to see. But again, you love Mary Earps in this moment. Her body language, they just conceded. She stormed out, punched her fist, drove her team on. Even the second after conceding, there was that belief, there was that perseverance, there was that beautiful, beautiful tenacity.
Yeah, we talked about the body language a lot. I think just that response of getting her team back, discussing something, communicating. When you have this like deer in headlights moment, oh my God, it's the World Cup final and we just got scored against, you really have to connect with somebody to get out of that. And I think responding with great body language, communication, a little bit of fighting spirit, I think that really goes a long way. You kind of, at the professional level, I feel like stop talking about body language, but it's so powerful. It's something they kind of teach you when you're a kid, and sometimes a coach will mention it, but I've always found that connecting with your teammates and having that positive response to stress or adversity is really, really powerful.
God, the story of the tournament for England was practical problem solving. We would have to see if they could do it again. Spain, remember, had scored first when these two teams had met in the Euros, and England's mentality gave them the power to come back at the very death. And at halftime, again, Vegman wielded the axe as she had done at halftime in the Spain-England Euros clash. There, she'd pulled Ellen White and Beth Mead and put on Russo and Chloe Kelly. But here it was Russo getting yanked along with Rachel Daly. Kelly inserted again, but it was finally time, second half, 45 minutes, to unleash young Lauren James. An enormous bold call. It's almost a coach saying, I got it wrong in that first half. Let me try and make it right. Not just in personnel, Sam, but it was a tactical shift also, right? They went to 4 at the back.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, I don't know if it's so much that I got it wrong. It could be, but I just think the way the first half went, they needed to change something. Something started to feel like it was going against England. Not necessarily even personnel, but I like the tactical change. I think it showed an ability to make a change when something isn't working. What's the word? An ability to be to adapt, to change things up. And I loved that. I think I love seeing Chloe Kelly come in a little bit earlier than she has been. Subbing her in for the last few minutes is super effective, but I wanted to see her have time to get in more of a rhythm. The Lauren James coming in, I think that was a good move as well. The tactical change, I wanted it to have more of an impact for England. I think they actually had been performing great in out of this 3-5-2. So adapting back and forth is always tricky. It was exciting to see the changes, that's for sure. I wish it had just been a little bit more effective for them.
Yeah, I mean, adapting had been the motif of England's tournament game to game. The plan was to get the ball out wide. Chloe Kelly fired one across the box. Lauren Hemp got to it, but somehow skewed it wide. 62nd minute, Bonmati fired just over Mary Earp's bar. But then, in the 69th minute, nice, after a ridiculously long VAR delay, insane, Spain were given a harsh handball, harsh but true, on Kira Walsh. It was a penalty. Ball flicked onto her arm. Wasn't intentional, but it did change the direction. And up steps Spain's Jenny Hermoso, a legend in Spain. I think the most goals all time scorer for the Spanish national team, a true warrior of the game, and now playing in Liga MX. Just a fierce, outspoken wonder of a human being. But you loved watching Lucy Bronze, a woman whose middle name, as I've said, is quite literally tough. That is her given middle name. You love watching her trash talking her opponent, probably in Spanish.
I think moments like that, like Lucy stepped out of what you're kind of supposed to do, which is just stand around the edge of the box and wait for the PK to happen. She was all in everybody's face. She was talking to the ref. She was complaining about where the ball was placed. She was standing in between the ball and the goal. She kind of took this moment as an opportunity to be like, okay, I may not be able to affect the game during the play how I want to right now. England doesn't have kind of the upper hand here. We have this call against us, but I'm going to get in Jenny Hermoso's head and try to disrupt this somehow. It showed me leadership and experience and a willingness to put your kind of personal self aside and just say somebody needs to be like wreaking havoc in here. And if nobody else is going to do it, it's going to be me. I don't know that she got in Jenny Hermoso's head by any means, but it certainly dragged things out. And when you're standing up there about to take a PK, you don't want it to be dragged out. So I give Lucy Bronze a lot of credit actually for kind of causing a little bit of a stir right before the penalty kick.
God, it was magnificent to watch. It was just like, have Keira Knightley just play Lucy Bronze in the movie. It was that just beautiful, a epic footballing moment. And it was followed by another, Mary Earps just leaping to her left and not just saving the ball, but holding on to it. I mean, off her line, yes, definitely, maybe, to quote Oasis. But then she went full Jordan Pickford after, just tongue out, just full swag. You shall not pass. I mean, our friends at Classic Football Shirts tweeted, and to think you still can't buy a jersey. Mary Earps, that was, even in defeat, that was just an epic performance.
Yeah, it was a huge save, huge timing. It kept England alive. Mary Earps ended up winning the Golden Glove, which is much deserved. I think she had an incredible tournament. It's those big moments that give you the opportunity to win awards like that, to keep your team in it, to give yourselves a chance, and coming up, big players step up in moments like that. So
I want to have her on. She is the player I'm most fascinated by, and I want her to come on in the wake. England, so direct, but they didn't look direct with confidence. Lauren James went about as close as England could. Fired one over. 90 minutes on came finally. Back-to-back Ballon d'Or winner Alexia for her. Almost a curtain call. I mean, a tournament blighted by injury, but my lord, seeing her tears at the final whistle, truly humanly beautiful. 92nd minute, another fantastic Mary Earps save. Honestly, could have been 3 or 4-0 today if it wasn't for Mary. It's England, Chuck Millie Bright up front like some kind of English Yerry Mina. Spain in attack. Chef Jose Andres, who joined us, what an incredible human being he is. He said so many of these women dance flamenco as kids, and it has shaped their ability, their footwork, and their approach to the game. It did make me wonder, Sam Mewis, what if our best flamenco dancers in the United States play football?
Who knows? I mean, let's get that out there into the world right now that we need more flamenco dancers.
More I think we've just say it's US soccer. We've just saved you the need to do a root and branch review. Just ramp up raid those flamenco schools. But huge credit, I've got to say, in this game to the Spanish backline. That defense, it was meant to be their vulnerability. They don't like it up them. They're not used to at Barcelona being challenged. They will buckle to hold this awesome English attack at bay physically as well as mentally. Hold them goalless is an immense achievement on the day, and Spain held on. FIFA's most competitive World Cup of all time. 30 minutes of extra time. You told me that your philosophy is to start running it into the corners after the 84th minute, which would have meant you would have had like almost half an hour of just Sam Mewis just running it into the corners, which I would have loved.
I know. I mean, I think the 13 minutes threw me for a loop a little bit, but normally around like 85, I'm like, okay, like it's time to like stop trying to score. Like we just need to protect this lead. Yep. But Spain, honestly, into about the 10th minute of stoppage time. So we're at 100 minutes and Spain was still crossing their corners.
Yep.
Which really confused me.
I think it must have been because Vilda had told them to run it into the corner, so they're like,
and they were just like,
man.
No,
we're going to do the opposite. Yeah, we're going to do the opposite of what you say you are. So
maybe this isn't like, maybe this is a football purist, or maybe this is the opposite of football purist. I'm not exactly sure where this one falls, but I am like, you're trying to win this game. Just go shield the ball in the corner. There's 3 minutes left. So I couldn't get over. Like my jaw was dropped that they continued to cross their corner kicks. Luckily, it was fine. But if anybody has insight to this that I'm missing, like I'm just so curious why they did that.
Yeah, probably. I genuinely can only think it's because Vilda was like, just run the clock down. They're like, sod that, man. They held on in this most competitive World Cup of all time. They won it, became the 5th Women's World Cup winner ever, just the 2nd along with Germany to have won the women's and the lesser men's. And they did it, and we have to say this again, while fighting their own federation, their own manager. You saw that at the final whistle. Tears on both sides. Tears of joy for Alexia Putellas and Jenny Hermoso. Tears of agony for Mary Earps, who couldn't have done more. But you saw Vilda, only men celebrated in the moment with the Spanish coach Vilda. The women made a point of just collapsing together in a beautiful heap of joy and wonder. And separate, Akwanga tweeted, Vilda smiling smugly like that colleague who does the least work but claims the most credit for the group project. But for England, 3 lions on a shirt, Jules Rimet still gleaming, no more years of hurt, no more need for dreaming. There still is, it's not coming home. It's not coming home. That song of yearning will still hurt. But this performance, got to say, so massive. I do want to make the point, the English journey is not the result of just 6, 7 great games here. It's a result of the Football Association finally beginning to invest in women's infrastructure. Talked up top about the game being banned for 50 years in England, which is astonishing. The investment will surely continue. There will be more young girls starting to play in England. More elite young footballers will be developed. The money coming in will grow exponentially. It's magnificent from a global perspective, from a US perspective. And make no mistake, the days of the United States being the sole superpower of women's football are over. We Americans are very much in an arms race, and I have to believe that we will realize that, wake up and treat it as such. But I can't describe what this journey has done to the game in England. The thousands of kids who have superhero figures to emulate and follow, to pick up a ball, to kick it, to join a team, and so from the perspective of the England I grew up in, that you played in, Sam, it's both unthinkable and what they've achieved. I do believe it's unstoppable, even in defeat today. But it is beautiful to witness.
It is, and it's like we saw the fans in Australia just absolutely come around their team. I hope in England it's the same way. This is such an incredible accomplishment to make the World Cup final, and England played incredible games in this tournament. There are stars on this team who's will be completely different moving forward. The opportunities that they have. I loved watching England, and I think the fact and the idea that they can change a whole culture around the game and a whole culture of a people. It's so inspiring, and I wish I could kind of give them a hug right now. It's just so devastating to be in this position to come in second and lose your last game of the tournament and know that you won't have another opportunity for 4 more years, but they have such young talent. They really did such an incredible job, and the Olympics are next year. So I know we'll see a lot of big things from this England team, and I give them so much credit for what they've been able to do for their country.
We have to talk about Spain. The women, many of them wore their jersey backwards during the trophy celebration. Their names front the Spanish Federation crest that they battled invisible. A win which really was less a testament to the Spanish Football Federation. The game only went professional for women in Spain in 2012. The national team had never won a World Cup until 2019. This is about the rise of Barcelona into a powerhouse. They invested heavily in women since 2015. That footballing idea, the ability to tactically destroy opponents with ball mastery, with collective vision, that's the gauntlet, throw it down. That's the new bar. That's the new height. That the US women's national team now must ask themselves hard questions about in terms of how to match. Lindsey Horan understood that when she came on our show. She's the sole American star we have playing in Europe. Watch her interview with me again from the first week of play, where she sounded the alarm about what she'd seen coming in terms of the strengths of the European game, how much more nuanced and complex it is to the American one. The superiority in numbers days of Title IX in the US are over. We're going to look at how we develop our players, the style of football we're learning, the way we train our coaches, the very idea of our football. I mean, there's deep questions we have to ask right now, right, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I like agree with everything that Lindsay said. I think different nations and different federations starting from the ground up have different goals. And the investment from the bottom, the grassroots level, getting a lot of kids playing, the way you teach them, it's different everywhere. I think in the US, there is a lot of emphasis on winning, and that is like a double-edged sword. I love that we love to win. I think it's a huge part of the culture of our sport here, of the sports industry here. I think winning is like the pinnacle. That's the goal. But when you're developing players, you can't sacrifice development for results. You have to look at what we're teaching, the style we're trying to play. Is it more important to play in a skillful way where you're learning and letting these players develop, or is it more important to just kick it long and use your physical attributes to just put goals in and just win games? There's a balance there. And I think we just have to examine that. And it does start at the youth level. And that's something that, I mean, there's so much to think about and so much involved. It's not simply down to just one thing. But I love Lindsay's perspective. I think she is such a pure footballing mind, and she has so much experience here and internationally to lend her voice to that issue.
God, we've been laughing all the World Cup that we have in my office, like hundreds of posters people have sent me of Alexi Lalas signing beautiful signed photos of himself in the early 90s. He signed each one of them, kick hard. Alexi Lalas, that was his signature. And I do think it's time that we stop the kicking hard and think hard about all of this. Really odd moment after the trophy celebrations. A small minority of Spanish players did throw Vilda in the air for about 3 seconds. Perhaps the only bigger surprise that they didn't just let him drop to the ground. No salt bait on the field with the trophy, which is what makes this the superior World Cup in terms of its relationship to the men's. I do wonder who will now find out to be the Spanish Ashlyn Harris in the post-game celebration. Sam Mewis, how would you like that apple? What is your memory of entering that locker room in 2019, having won that World Cup? Just give us one blast of just memory of getting off the field into that locker room, the bud flowing, Ashlyn Harris just beaming everything live on social media. What was that dominant memory for Smewis?
Well, we opened the beers quickly, and we all you need a second. You kind of need a second to rest. I was exhausted. I played 90 minutes. I had to sit down for a minute. I wanted to take my cleats off. You don't check your phone. It's just going to be too much, way too distracting. But we couldn't open the champagne until Pino had gotten back from her press stuff. And Pino just scored in the final, won the golden ball, won the golden boot. Her press took 30 minutes. So we're all hovering around the champagne like little bumblebees. Where is Pino? All we want to do is spray champagne and dump it all over our heads. And we had to wait. So when Pino finally walked in, our hero, icon, savior, the person who really carried the team the whole tournament, we were so excited because not only was the whole tournament this build up, but just this 30 minutes of waiting for her was a build up. So we got a little bit of rest. I shoved some food in my mouth. We waited for Pinot, and then it was just mayhem.
Oh, we opened the beers quickly is like the first sentence of a truly great Hemingway novel. But we do need quickly to touch upon US matters quickly before we take your questions. US Women's National Team manager Vlatko Andonovski stepped down from the role on Thursday after nearly 4 years on the job. The Olympic damp squibbed the World Cup exit in the round of 16, which still hurts, during which he took the heat for the lack of identity of the team and the inability to use his bench to tweak or change anything through substitutions. Andonovski, via the US Soccer release, said, "I'm very optimistic for the future of the programme, especially considering all the young players that got opportunities who will no doubt be leaders and impact players moving forward." Sam, how will he be remembered? Will it be like a leader of a time of deep challenge for the US program, or will he be the transition gent who oversaw the bedding of a new dawn? Only history is going to tell, right?
Yeah, I mean, Vlatko is a good coach, and I like wish him well. I think that in my experience with the national team, I learned a lot from Vlatko. Technically, I learned some things tactically that I really value that I would take forward with me. And I think that this has certainly, since our Olympics performance, been a challenging time. And these are the times where you have the opportunity to grow the most. So I would just, again, wish Vlatko nothing but the best. And I would just put on the federation and to all of us, like, let's view these past two tournaments as an opportunity to improve and grow. And let's look to what's next, knowing that we can be better.
I mean, I'll say Vlatko leaves without me/us feeling as fans we ever really knew him. You know, US Women's National Team coaches, often feel like they've been hired to enable the great players to steamroll their way to victory in this new hyper-competitive era. I mean, this is the transition. Can we get this? A tactically astute coach who can problem solve in times of true challenge. Gianni Infantino said in his pre-match press conference, this is an incredible quote. I can hardly read it. It's so shocking. "Tell the women in the room, pick the right battles. You have the power to change. You have the power to convince us men what we have to do and what we don't have to do. Just do it. With men, with FIFA, you'll find open doors. Just push the doors." AKA today I am a door, a very condescending door, a very patronizing door. Sam, what do you think when you hear that? The sound of the man in power saying, "Work within my power structures so I can neutralize you rather than cause trouble, embarrass me, and really create change."
Yeah. I mean, it's not unexpected. I think the attitude of that is like that women advocating for themselves is being like taken for granted. Like, of course you'll advocate for yourself and you'll push these doors open and tell us what to do. And it's creating a world of equality is on everybody. It affects everybody. It's something everybody should want. Creating opportunities for people who have historically not gotten them is something that's on all of us. And so, I think the comments are like not spot on. And so I think that we will all continue to do what we're doing.
Sam Mewis, the nicest human being in the world, says the comments are not spot on.
Women need to, we will continue to push how we're pushing. Like, we didn't need him to tell us that.
Do your own, number one, don't listen to men. Number two, love to our great friend Ada Hergerberg, who tweeted, "Working on a little presentation to convince men. Who's in?" The good news for women is that it is inarguable. The attendance, 1.9 million and counting, the most successful women's sporting event ever, a World Cup that commercially is so bloody robust, independent, and poised to soar. It could be held in the US, please God, in 2027. This is Rog, one more time for World Cup 2023, saying, Spain, just deep, deep congratulations. You deserve every second, every moment of joy. England, thank you. Thank you. To more. Big love. courage. Listen to the full version of this podcast and all our podcasts wherever you get your pods. But first, subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos and courage.